Good day, YouTubers. Hey, I said earlier I was going to do a little bit of instructional video on learning or getting paint to a lure, on a lure. At least my journey, I mean, I didn't have it all that easy and all that bad. I mean, everything's a learning curve, but I think for you new painters out there that, picking up an airbrush and for the first time and all that, it may be a little help to you anyway. First of all, what got me to this point was I've been wanting to paint lure for years. Just never found the time or to do it. And April of 2018, I suffered a stroke. And of course, my right side, which is my dominant side, I don't have much use of it. It's just what it is. So anyway, I can't sit in front of a TV and watch, the boob tube all day. So I just, I did some research, and I love to fish, and anything got to do with fishing. I used to make my own rod and stuff, and so I figured, well, let me do some YouTubing on lure paint, and I did, and it was interesting, to say the least. I mean, there's some really good artists out there. I'm telling you, their lure paint schemes are incredible. My hat's off to them for sure. Anyway, so I done some research, and I looked at that and started buying stuff. It took me a couple years to get everything together that I thought I needed, paints and stuff. Anyway, so buying an airbrush, I researched airbrushes and stuff like that, and I didn't want to spend that kind of too much money on an airbrush, because I may not do this or may not like it or whatever. So I ended up buying a Posh Talon. One like this, Posh Talon. And it came with the .25, the .38, and the .66 needles and nozzles and all that. So for less than $70, what the heck. And, I'd never done an airbrush before, so I figured if I make an airbrush, it's got to work. So I bought it and all that. And the issues with the airbrush isn't the airbrush, for the most part. Most of my issues came from my inability to understand paint, understand pressure, understand, temperature, understanding shaking the paint, and everything combined. I mean, paint may sit on a shelf for a year, and you buy it, take it home, shake it up, half a dozen times, and call it good. Well, it's not good for the most part. And in my opinion, about this, I really screwed up my airbrush a lot because of too thick paints. And so I kind of come to an understanding, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to thicken my paint. I'm going to thin my paint. I'm going to stay at one pressure, set it like 25. I am going to thin every paint I got. I'm going to look at it coming out of the bottle, and, if it seems really thick, I'm going to thin it. So I started out with thinning my paints more than most people, I guess, anyway. And it seemed to work out quite a bit. I mean, it really did help me in my journey with, getting the paint right. And I know it doesn't seem like it's rocket science, and it's not. But for this, never doing it before and trying to understand this, it was interesting. And cleaning your brush and all that. Of course, I got one chicken wing, so deep clean, taking apart an airbrush 100% and doing it, I can do it. But it's difficult, and I didn't like doing it for the most part. Heck, I tore up a few needles doing it. Tell you what. Anyway, so I did learn to clean the brush and all that. But what I learned in the paint, thinning the paint, was, staying at one pressure and that, and keeping the paint, the viscosity where I think like some people run down their thumb and all that, and that is a good thing to do. Milk consistency, basically, because look, as soon as you clean an airbrush, get it all put back together, it sprays water perfect. I mean, no problem spraying water, but as soon as you dump paint on there, it starts plugging. Well, obviously it's a paint issue. So we overcome that. My understanding, if I was going to tell anybody to start learning to paint, thin your paint. You can always thicken it. And here's the deal. If you don't thin it beforehand enough, then you're going to plug your brush. and then you got to take your brush apart or do something, different to get it to flow. So thin your paint, thin your paint. You can always thicken it, and thin paint to me actually worked out because I like several layers. I like to layer baits, so I didn't want just a dark color for one swap. I want to layer it, and that way that thin paint actually layered better for the most part. It actually flowed better. It worked out for me, and so that was one of the things that helped me quite a bit. The other thing is obviously learning how to clean a brush. A lot of you folks, you paint lures, YouTube, and we don't see behind the scenes, which is fine. I mean, that's cool. I understand editing, I understand time, and we don't see what happens. Obviously, it can be a pain in the butt. But what I found, I found a couple of things about these airbrushes. Certain paints, especially white, if I'm putting a base coat on, which nowadays I don't use the Talon for base coat. I use the Pache, the bottle brush for base coat, because it don't have any it's single action, so the paint actually atomizes right there in the end where it comes out of the brush. So there's no needle, as far as no moving needle. It's a solid stationary needle, and you adjust the flow by adjusting the nose cap here, and so you ain't got to worry about the needle drying out. And it, if you're doing a lot of lures, you will love it. Trust me. This Pache H is, man, this is a cat's meow. I love it. But what happens when you do paints like white, or if you do a bunch of base coats or a lot of color, your paint dries on your needle and dries on the walls of your nozzle. And over, course of several minutes, then that builds up and builds up. Next thing you know, you got to plug in. And that's just that in a nutshell. I mean, it don't get no better than that. So you got to take it apart. You got to do whatever. Two things I learned about that. Actually, I know a lot of people will cringe, but I got tired of taking my gun apart 10 times a day. Really, I did. I about threw the thing through the wall several times. But what I learned is it's everything. All these little tips and tricks and stuff like that. Your bowl, or some people call it a cup. Then you got your needle down below, and then you got the needle goes into a chamber which goes out through a nozzle, and you open the nozzle, and the paint comes out. If you do that, if your paint's too thick and you got it plugged, and it can't be that bad. You can't put water through it, can't put cleaner through it because it's not spraying. Right here, Joke and carb cleaner. Put that sucker down in the throat, but cover it. I ain't going to show you one-handed right now, but cover your bowl because it does splash out, and hit that a few licks, and let it sit a little bit. Then hit it a few more licks, and then try to get your air going. Trust me, it's helped me quite a bit. It has, and what it does, even over time, you can squirt a little bit in there, and as you're squirting it, you can go back and forth with your needle. I can't do that because I got one chicken wing, so I got to take off my back, loosen up the needle, pull the needle out underneath of it, and then spray it, work the needle in and out, spray it, work the needle in and out, and then flush it and put everything back together. But that's it. The other thing I noticed, of course, one chicken wing, ergonomics is an important thing for me, and so what has to happen is when not so much I don't clean between every color because you don't have to. But I do clean, when you got to clean like a black or one of these wild colors that's, doesn't like to keep out the bowl. Most people take and they squirt it. Well, obviously you do. And, I've done this in the past, squirted it, and that and all that, and it works good. But again, you got to pick it up and you got to squirt it, and everything's ergonomic. So, well, I got a sprayer, a pump-up sprayer. One of these pump-up sprayers is no big deal, less than $20 at anywhere. Pump it up. Watch this. I'm going to go back some. Let me adjust this camera a little bit. All right. I'll go back so you can, but look, man, it just flushes the crap out of it. I mean, you don't have to do nothing to squeeze the handle. And so that really, really helped me, for sure. Because, you know, you're emptying and all this kind of stuff. Now, if you've got two hands, you can do things different. But once again, I got to do what I got to do on that. All right, let's see. So, cover the airbrush clean is the way I'd clean it. Then if you got to deep clean. If not, you know. I know I am not the most cautious person in the world about things, about working on stuff. I mean, you know, all my life I've been a maintenance for the most part before my stroke, but you know, I was a good maintenance man. But, you know, these things are, I mean, needles are like, you know, needles are needles. The only complaint I got about these Talons, two things I got to complain. The triggers are kind of funky sometimes. And the nozzle is so thin that you can break a nozzle real easy by, you know, by pushing on it too hard. When I say that, the nozzle web of the nozzle is super thin. You got a needle inside the web of the nozzle that is a wedge, and you poke that wedge in that nozzle, it can split it. That's my only complaint about this gun is the nozzles ain't, and I understand, you know, manufacturing, but they're just not, you know, they could be just a little bit beefier. Other than that, they've been a real good air gun. I can't complain whatsoever on it. The other thing I found out when I was researching air guns, for the most part, you know, I got it, you know, less than $70 for, you know, 3 sizes. Parts for the Pache Talon, they're reasonable. I can get a needle, a nozzle, and a cap, air cap, for less than $15. I mean, that's like Mastercraft prices, you know, and it's a made in America, well-built air gun. So, and the parts wasn't that bad at all to find or to get. Now, other airbrushes, man, a needle itself is $20 or $25, and a nozzle is $20 or $25. And the way I tear up stuff, I don't think I could handle that. Anyway, let's see. Can't get in front of the stupid camera, my brain dead. Anyway, thin your paints. You know, learn to clean your gun, and if you have to do emergency stuff, do the choke carb cleaner. And don't get frustrated. I mean, you know, something else that's helped me. This helped me quite a bit. Then my next phase of helping me was this. Here, let me add a little bit of stuff on that. See that stream? I did that for a long time, but I had a moment. I thought, well, that's, you know, 25 pounds there. I can go probably. I learned to turn up the air, then turn it back down, but messing with that regulator was a pain in the butt every time. So I ended up putting a bypass from my in to my out, so I can turn on the bypass. Look at this spray. And that will definitely clean the air gun. One of these airbrushes. So if you've got a compressor, and you know, and on-demand compressor you can't do that with, but if you got a real compressor, and you do a bypass from the inlet to the outlet, trust me, it helps out quite a bit. Now I got a regulator from my air source, or filter, not regular filter from my air source, as well as filters at the point. So, you know, I've had them in the shop. I've, you know, had them for years, and I had them, so I might as well use them. Anyway, so we had pretty good, up to that was about 85%. I mean, I now can come in the shop, sit down for 3 or 4 hours and produce lures, all right, because I wasn't fighting it. I mean, I had a handle on the paint and all that. But there's still that you're never going to get 100%. I don't care who you are. So there's still that 10% that I was lacking. And it always ended up with pearls or metallics and some glitters that, you know, didn't like to go through the gun, you know, or if you put them in the gun that plugged it for some reason. You know, you could sit there and shake it for, you know, shake it till your arm falls off and then shake it for 20 more minutes. So I ended up getting on YouTube, which YouTube is absolutely a great resource for finding stuff out, finding answers. It really is. It's too bad, we didn't have this years ago. Anyway, so we take paint, shake it. It's like, oh my gosh. And now I got one chicken wing, so I mean, if I shake it too much, I'm gonna let the rest. So anyway, I ended up getting on YouTube a little bit, and it was quite interesting for the most part. What I seen, there was really nothing other than one video that I seen of a person that did this. He put a clamp. I had this Makita jigsaw, saber saw laying around for 30, 40 years, probably 30 years anyway, 25, 30 years anyway. And I put this clamp on, and I can clamp it, move my holder out of the way, and I put a power strip in here. I can put that. Now I can't pick it up because I got to kind of bolt it down to the thing. But that jigsaw, now I can speed it up. I got it high wrapped for 1 speed, but you can speed it up. But that has absolutely helped me. I can't even begin to tell you how that was. I mean, it really helped quite a bit. I was quite impressed that it worked out so good. It really was. Now the other thing I had to do special is, we got to help everybody use the helping hands, obviously. But I can't spray and hold. So I can do the helping hands. I got to stop and turn it, which is no big deal. I can do that. But when it comes to like lures that's hard to put on there, because again, hard to put on, like Zora spooks, anything without a bill, it became tough. So I ended up coming up with this. Basically, they're just a piece of 1x1 wood. These are ice fishing rods that I bought and cut up to get the springiness, and I put swivels on them. There's a swivel, just tie wrap to the ice fishing rod eye, and put them on there. It's no big deal. Now I can paint, I can turn, I can paint, I can turn. Well, you say, well, won't the spray gun move it? Well, it may move it at times, but I got this. It's a barbecue skewer. That's all it is, with a roach clip on the end. Clip it onto that shaft of that thing, and I can move it wherever I want and hold it. Any position. Because once again, I'm limited to what I can do. That's helped out quite a bit, man. I've that's made my life simple for the most. I got a weight on it, lead weight that keeps, so it, if it bounces around a little bit, or it wants to move around with the well, it gets out of balance. If you got a heavy lure on there, it kind of gets out of balance with all this paper towels put down. It's not quite 100% level. Well, that's my journey. I'll tell you, it's been fun, guys. I got to tell you what, I should have done this 15, 20 years ago. I love to fish, and I struggle fishing right now. I can't say I'm getting better at fishing, but I struggle. But it's okay. It's okay. I'm alive. I'm breathing, and we'll get to it and all that. If you have any questions, just answer to this video. We'll try to correct them. Now, I do make my own cleaner. This cleaner is basically, it's just a ½ gallon of auto wash fluids. You buy it at Walmart for $2 or $3. ½ gallon of that. I mix a bottle of Fantastic, that green bottle up there, and I mix that's probably a quart. And I mix a quart of 91% alcohol, and that's my cleaning fluid. And it works out good. I also use a lot of water. Obviously, water's cheap, and that. But if you got a compressor, put a bypass on and get that full air, man, it's unreal what it does. And this carb cleaner really does soften that. If you got paint built up in there, it does soften it. If you give it a few minutes, it will soften it to a point where you can, get air coming through. And once you get air coming through, you just keep cleaning if you don't want to take it apart. It does work out quite well. All right, guys, I'll tell you what, guys and gals, it's a fun hobby. I can't say it's a cheap hobby, but it's fun. Gets me out of the house, and that's what it's all about. I have fun. I get out of the house, and I enjoy doing it. I mean, of course, my shop, or I should call it my chaos cave. Actually, it's organized chaos cave. My wife makes fun of me because she says, "Oh, you don't know nothing of that." Trust me, I know where everything's at. I may not be able to find it every time, but I know where 99% of the stuff is. She has no faith in me. Well, y'all have a good one, and behave. Don't do nothing I wouldn't do.